Welcome to PLZ Soccer's Football Show. We're live on YouTube. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Ruff and Tam McManus here with me in the studio. Delighted to have your company. And if you get a chance, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and come and join the football family as we talk football and bring you lots of programming right across the whole of our channel. 7 days a week. We've got reporters out at games. We're bringing you reaction to the results across the Scottish Premiership with managers and players talking to us. And we're delighted that so many of you have shown your support for us over the course of last season. And as we move into week 2, we'll be discussing the Scottish Premiership over the weekend. But while Tam has a quick sneeze, we'll then move on to what can only be described as European football at Conference League level, where we were hoping that Kilmarnock and St Mirren would do a good turn for Scottish football in the first leg and set it up nicely for the second leg. Well, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Callum McGregor retiring from international football. Adam Idah all set for a return at £6 million from Norwich to Celtic. Hearts extending Stevie Naismith contract might interest you. Rangers all set for the new Hampden home. And over and above that, Bojan Miovski may well be off-ski from Scottish football, and Lee Carsley checks in as England's interim boss. Just a few of the topics we'll be discussing, as well as the Charity Shield with both halves of Manchester locked head-to-head. Ruffy, we wanted a good result in the both games. What was your take on it?
Well, obviously, Tam saw more of the St Mirren game than me with his satellite disc. But again, I just feel if the results were away from home, we'd be sitting here going, well, we've got a wee chance here. But I think, unfortunately, I don't know about Kilmarnock, but I mean, St Mirren, by all accounts, were very fortunate to get that goal late on. So they'll try and believe that they can go away from home and get a win. But I think in the evidence, that team looked a lot better than St Mirren.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Norway has a population of about 5.5 million, similar to Scotland. You would have thought we were just starting out at times in football because they played great possession football, Brann. Admittedly, and I'll be fair to Stephen Robinson and the side, they were 18 games into their season. They're sitting second top. But, God, it just looked like two different teams playing at a different level.
Yeah, I watched the St Mirren Brann game, and I thought that Brann were miles ahead in terms of technically, physically, but a massive advantage, Peter. 18 games into the season, you know, St Mirren have played one league game, and they went in the League Cup as well. So I think that they've got a big ask on over there in Norway. I think both teams now had to take a lead over there. I think when you look at Bodo Glimt coming to Celtic Park and wiping the floor with Celtic, I think the Norwegian league, I thought was maybe on a par, but watching those games last night in the highlights, I think they're maybe a wee bit ahead of us in terms of their quality. But they'll still believe, I think, St Mirren. I think O'Hara was a big miss for them, Peter. Olasanya, I think, suspended for the second leg. So, you know, I think Bergen will be strong favourites. I think Kilmarnock against Tromso might be closer. I wasn't really impressed with Tromso. I watched the first half. I thought Kilmarnock were well in that game. So, listen, it's going to be tough for both teams, Peter. I think we needed both to take a lead over to Norway.
Do you think, I mean, we've got to cut Stephen Robinson some slack on the basis that you said, OK, the Norwegians, Brann, are, 18 games into their season. But it was the way they played football, Tam, that, I've been very, very complimentary about St Mirren and Kilmarnock towards the tail end of last season because, quite simply, although we all agree Scottish football last season, I thought the standard was very poor, Kilmarnock and St Mirren could brag at having good seasons and played some half-decent football, but they just looked out of their depth.
Yeah, they did, and the St Mirren goalkeeper was outstanding. He had 3 or 4 outstanding saves.
By half-time?
By half-time. I think St Mirren took, their first shot on target was like 70-odd minutes at home. They never had a corner until 70-odd minutes. They were totally dominated. But football's football, Peter, anything can happen, and they get that goal at the end, and that gives them hope going over to Bergen, but they'll need to play a lot better. I think St Mirren, Brann were excellent, but I didn't think St Mirren turned up, Peter. I think they had 7-8 players off the pace, and you can't do that in a big game like that. So they have to play the game of their lives and hope Bergen have an off day.
Yeah, I have to say, Ruffy, I'm worried now. I think both of them could be going out. And again, this is my bugbear when we get to the start of the season, by the time you get to August, you're lucky if you've got 2 left in half-decent competitions.
Yeah, I don't think we expected it last night. I think obviously Kilmarnock and St Mirren were the 2 top teams in the top 6. You know, breath of fresh air last year. I think maybe Tam said the St Mirren team are a big, strong team, the bully teams and that, but when the other teams got possession of the ball, you don't get bullying them. I mean, if you can't get near them. You know, so, I mean, stranger things have happened when you go away from home, but I don't think...
When have those stranger things happened, Ruffy?
Not with these smaller teams.
Not in the last 20 years.
I'm still believing.
Believing what?
One of them will get through.
One of them?
Yeah,
Which one?
I think Kilmarnock probably.
You think so?
Yeah, I think Kilmarnock will get through, yeah.
Wow.
I think they've got players that will score goals, and as Derek was saying, you know, they're losing silly goals. If they can tidy that up, you know, instead of giving away stupid goals, you know, they'll get a chance. I think they're good enough to go away from home and get a 1-0 or something.
To put it into perspective, Peter, Cercle Bruges, who just beat Kilmarnock, got hammered off of Molde, the Norwegian team 3-0 last night.
Yeah.
So if that's the strength of
did you watch that game?
That was an earlier kick-off.
Shall we tell you something? Shall we tell you? I'm seriously worried, because you know what things are like. Everybody now in life has to put up with the fact that your whole relationship is based on you breaking from social media to say, is there any dinner? Right? But the big man you must sit in one room and she sits in the other, then you meet up at the time to go to bed.
That's it. I watched all sorts of football. Cercle Bruges were excellent. And so that's what you're talking about. The Norwegian league does seem stronger.
Rosenborg have been the stars in Norwegian football in Europe.
I haven't asked for a couple of seasons.
But the standard does also in there.
Yeah, but I have to say, I don't share your enthusiasm, Ruffy. I must admit, and I think we still, although there is tremendous enthusiasm around our game, and we are fanatical about football, sadly, our football is not at the standard that we'd like it to be, although I'd counter that by saying that I'm slightly heartened by some of the players that have come into the league, some of the youngsters that I hope are going to shine. I'm hoping that maybe we'll see an improvement in what we're watching this season, certainly on the basis, I'm only talking one game, but I enjoyed the Dundee derby. Celtic were really good against Kilmarnock. Played some really good football, which, you know, I think Brendan Rodgers has taken a season to get it out of them. Whether that continues or not, I don't know. But isn't it amazing that our whole viewpoint changes when we have to see our clubs go and play in Europe, and you see the standard and the difference in the levels?
Did you not think, Pierre, when we watched the Euros, when you watched all the national teams playing, they played different football for us? They played possession football, movement, you know, making themselves available. We don't seem to play that style. We've not caught on to that style of football yet.
Well, we've caught...
I mean, Celtic do it, and I think Rangers do it to a certain extent, but I think that taking the other teams out, I think because they're not used to playing European football and they come up against these teams and they, like last night, as Tam was saying, possession football. I mean, Kilmarnock don't have an experience, St Mirren don't have an experience of coming up against that kind of European style of football.
Yeah, and on the evidence of Tam and I in Germany, Scotland are able to keep possession 42 passes, but unfortunately they're still in their own half by the time they play the 42 passes. But nevertheless, it doesn't fill me full of confidence. What also doesn't fill me full of confidence is when we get messages on our live feed saying that you know, we need to stop playing the low block. I'm not having any of this 21st century low block, although I do like one person who says, Stuart Derrick says, St Mirren need to keep the high balls low. And I think that oversimplifies the whole thing, because quite simply, St Mirren need to keep the ball, which they did not do in that first half. I thought they were well poor, and if Stephen Robinson wasn't reading them the riot act at half-time, I'd have been gobsmacked, because he was jumping up and down like a madman on that touchline.
Yeah, I think obviously St Mirren against Valur kind of physically overpowered them. You heard their manager coming out and saying that after the game, Peter. You know, they were no match for St Mirren physically. I think the Norwegians are traditionally a big, strong team. I think they handled St Mirren's physicality, long balls in behind. And when they got the ball, they were just on a different level with St Mirren. They kept the ball. And but for great goalkeeping and poor finishing, you know, the tie would have been over. So, listen, St Mirren are still in the tie. One each, you go over there with a bit of hope, but St Mirren will need to play a lot better. They'll need to keep the ball better, and they'll need to take whatever opportunities come their way, because on last night's evidence, just watching that game, I thought Bergen were 2 or 3 levels ahead of them.
Yep, I agree. You think Kilmarnock, can you see anyone getting through from
I think it's difficult to see any of the teams going away from home and winning. I think at home we're usually stuffy and hard to beat. You know, it's been a long time since one of our teams has got a great result away from home, and I'm including Celtic in that. You know, Rangers have obviously been better in Europe, but I think both of the teams are out. I think Kilmarnock and St Mirren are both go out, sadly.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tam. I think that is the case. Okay, you can give us your view on it. Do you think Killie can go away and defeat Tromso, and what about SK Brann? Can St Mirren maybe just get into their groove and provide a real surprise? Certainly hope so, one of them or both of them. That would be, I'm quite happy to get absolutely battered on next week's show if they were able to do it, but I can't see it. What about you? Can you? This is the Football Show, and thank you to so many of you for joining us. As you'll probably notice on a yearly basis, everybody just starts copying us. They watch what we're doing and then they think, well, we'll go and try and do it as well. And they wait to see what we are up to and our innovations, and then they start to copy us day in, day out. We're flattered, Ruffy, with everybody who obviously needs direction.
Yeah, it's not the first time that we've met somebody and talked to them and what they're going to do, and they steal your ideas. And I mean, we could sit here all day because there's been tons of them. Yeah,
absolutely. And with that in mind, it's nice to have Tam with us, because obviously he's got his rat face on with the Daily Record boys the other day.
Doing podcasts?
Oh, he was doing podcasts with them and everything.
Man's got to feed his family, Peter.
It's a very good point, by the way. And of course,
I need to get myself a better satellite dish as well. This one's a wee bit. It was buffering last night, so I need to get a better stick. It cost me money.
Absolutely. And don't forget, we will give you the chance to join us in the studio when Tam kisses the badge, and then we wave goodbye to him. That's our competition for next week, where he can go and join Keith and all his mates at the Daily Record. Ruffy, think we should bullet him?
Jacko.
I did. I never knew. I never knew you did that.
Yeah.
I'm a bit
absolutely.
taken aback.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Didn't think you were like that at all.
Well, I think you were fortunate a few months ago that you didn't do something that you were going to do at Easter Road.
Yes,
well, someone you used to work with.
Yeah, What about that, by the way?
Peter would have had a brain hemorrhage.
There was a bit of skullduggery going on there. I managed
that would have been the ultimate. That would have been the ultimate snake, by the way.
I managed to use my experience to hit that one in the head.
Absolutely. Anyway, listen, we love it. Competition is healthy. The great thing about it is so many people, broadcasters, radio, and of course, maybe not as much on TV other than the live games, but certainly you can watch people talking about football. We all love it. And as we say often on this programme, if you want any kind of programme where it's just talking about your club in a positive manner and they can do no wrong, there's fanzines as well out there in podcasts where they talk positively about their club and don't criticise them. So there's something for everybody.
So this would not be the show for them.
this is definitely not the show for them. Absolutely.
The show for you if you don't.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll miss you at the Christmas party. But I tell you, the night out with Jacko and them at Christmas party will be great, won't it?
Right.
Oh, absolutely. I think Jacko's the only one left. Anyway, Callum McGregor retires from international duty. Listen, he's served the country well. I think he's a wonderful player. I think probably Steve Clarke has just said thank you, because you've been, first class.
Remind me his age, just off the top of your head.
32, I think.
32, I was thinking.
32. He's done his bit. I think he's about the only player in Scotland who's been playing 50, 60 games a season.
Yeah.
For a long, long time. That's got to take, its toll at some stage, and you've got to say to yourself, well, the club pays me. I love the club. I want to play with the club as long as possible. And playing for Scotland curtails that by a couple of years. I don't want it to happen. So I wouldn't think anybody would have a bad word to say about Callum calling it a day. That, I mean,
31.
There are a lot of Scottish players who do call it a day when you could have something to say about them, but not.
Can I ask you this? Should we not be accused of being two-faced about this, Ruffy? Because we have been on this programme before, Tam, saying the international manager should call time in your career. The world has changed now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and 31's still reasonably young, I think, to call it a day. He lost his problems with his Achilles, I think, which is maybe a major issue for him. He's missed games for Celtic over the last maybe season, which hasn't happened. You know, the seasons before that, Peter, you're right, he was playing 50, 60 games. I think that's caught up with him physically, and he's decided that he wants to step away from international football. I know Scott Brown done the same, and Scott Brown immediately regretted it because he found himself trooping in the shops with the Waynes and the wife when Scotland were playing, and I think he wanted to go back. So whether Callum does that, I don't know. But Bruni done the same and then thought, maybe it's better to get away with the boys again. But I don't know if Callum will do that.
Could be anything to do with the Euros, with some of the not stick that he got, but a lot of people were.
Callum McGregor.
A lot of the supporters were saying, "Oh, he never played as well as what he used to do," and blah blah blah. And you know, I know a lot of the midfield, but I think I personally thought there was a few people had an unfortunate go at him, you know, because of his level of performance over the 3 games. But when you're playing that many games in a season, you know, you're going to struggle a wee bit at that level.
He wasn't really one of those players that I thought was in the firing line for any criticism, because overall the team, I thought, should have been, and without going back over old ground with Scotland, I thought they should have been a wee bit more adventurous in the Switzerland game and certainly in the Hungary game, and changes should have been made. But listen, you learn by your mistakes. But Callum was coming back off injury, as you said. I think that's a valid point, Tam, you make, you know.
Yeah, and as I say, I think it's caught him physically. Everybody was saying, "Oh, Callum McGregor plays every game." He did. You know, for the last 4 or 5 seasons, he's hardly missed a game. But you've seen last season, he was starting to miss games with Celtic. He was out for a while over the Christmas period with his Achilles, and he's just come back. He's kind of rushed himself back. I don't think he looked 100% at the Euros. I think a lot of your players get criticised, including Callum. So maybe he's thinking, I want to make sure that I am 100% ready for Celtic. You know, with big games coming up, Champions League, you know, it's going to be difficult for me, and those international breaks are a time for me to rest my body, maybe go away.
He's got a level of performance that's a way up there above everybody else. And if he thinks, well, I'm going to drop down with the amount of games I'm playing and picking up injuries, I don't want to go through it. I want to be my best.
Okay, he's out. So who takes his place? Is it a Lewis Ferguson?
Yeah, the people that will have to. We've got 3 Nations games coming up. The people that were on the fringe, I think, should now be given a chance. I think there's a lot of players that have been there for a long time. Maybe Stevie Clarke find a new way of playing, you know, with more forward thinking players in the side. So, yeah, I think these guys will be now saying to themselves, well, he's out, there might be 2 or 3, there might be another 2 or 3 might come out in the shell and say, well, I maybe not want to play either.
Yeah. Ferguson?
Yeah, probably. I think you've got Gilmour, McTominay, McGinnon there anyway, Peter. You've got those 3, and you've got Lewis Ferguson obviously been out injured, but hopefully he'll be back soon. And you might have some other younger players, young Roy Watson at Kilmarnock coming through, looks really good as well. So you might have players coming through, but I think I agree with Ruffy. I think you might find maybe a few just thinking to themselves, maybe it's time for me to concentrate on my club. But it's such an honour to play for your country, and I think that I think it should be the manager saying, listen, you're not picked, rather than you saying, I'm not going to turn up again for my country. I don't particularly agree with that, but times have changed. Club rules the roost over country, Peter, as we know now.
Absolutely. Adam Idah, it looks as if they're talking to try and finally get the deal over the line. Whatever that figure is, Adam Idah, what do you make of it as a signing for Celtic?
Well, at the end of last season, he came on and he scored big goals. You can't take that away from him, you know. And he looked the part, but I think, I just think it's not a massive gamble, but I think with the success that Celtic have had with picking up players, you know, down in England and with £4, £5, £6 million, they think, I think they think he is a player that can go to another level. I think I think they're looking at it thinking, right, this could be another one. It's maybe 6 million and maybe get 12 million for him in a couple of years. I mean, he's playing for Ireland, isn't he? I mean, he's an international player. I just don't know how he's going to fit in regular week in, week out in that Celtic team.
Tom?
Yeah, I think he's got all the attributes, Peter, to not only play for Celtic and do well domestically here in the Champions League, but then go to England, the Premier League. I think he's 6 foot plus, he's left-sided, he's quick, you know, he's physical, you know, he scores goals, he's good in the air, he's got a nice touch. I think he's got all the attributes for Celtic to to have 2 or 3 good seasons at Celtic, Peter, and then Celtic sell him down south for 20 to 25 million if he does well. So I think that £6-7 million could be money very well spent for Celtic.
Yeah, of the Idah who Celtic fans have experienced and Paulo Bernardo, both of those players didn't start regularly. This might be the season if they're regular players, they're permanent signings, that Brendan Rodgers says, okay, now you've got to really push, now you've got to convince me that you're part of this system that I'm building. Will it be enough for the Celtic fans? Are they expecting more? Are they wanting more?
No, I don't think it'll be enough. I think both of those players were part of the squad last season, so Celtic fans will be thinking, well, not really strengthened. They were still part of it. Bernardo and Idah, I think that's great for filling out the squad in terms of depth, but I think the Celtic supporters will want to see someone coming in better than Scales. I think they want to see someone coming in better than Taylor. I think those two areas in that left-hand side, if Celtic want to make an impact in Europe, have got to be strengthened. Domestically, no problem. I think both those guys will stroll through games, majority of the games in the Premiership. But Champions League, you've got to find better for those two areas. And that's the key for me. OK, Bernardo coming in and Idah coming in strengthens the squad. But if you want to strengthen the actual team, your starting 11, you need to strengthen that left-hand side of the defence for me.
Yeah, we've already said centre-back, left-back. Idah's one striker. I still think they need another striker and possibly someone in the midfield to replace Matt O'Reilly, who will undoubtedly be sold in the last week of the window.
Yeah, I think that's why the Bernardo one had to go through. I think Brendan Rodgers knew at the end of the day somebody, although they were going on about the fee and all that, I think Brendan Rodgers knew somebody for England would pay the asking price. So I think that's why it was so important for Bernardo to get in there, you know, because it doesn't it'll no stop, you know, the cry, the outrage when he goes, but it'll sort of muffle it a wee bit. But they need to come back with something else. I think they need 2 centre-halves. I think Cameron Vickers was picking up wee niggly injuries, and I think the Celtic support noticed when he wasn't there for a month or so, it was a bit iffy for a wee while. So quality, they've got to buy quality.
You're saying that, but Celtic have got hundreds of centre-halves. I mean, they've got Kobayashi, they've got Lager Bielka, they've got Naroki, they've got Welsh, they've got Scales, they've got Carter. They need to get. I think they need to get rid of 2 or 3 of them, Peter. You can't just keep signing centre-halves.
No, exactly. And you can't keep centre-halves on your books who are a standard below. So I think, and some people might want to actually play regular football. I think Stephen Welsh must be looking and saying to himself, unless he's of the mind that he's thinking, okay, I'm on good money at the moment, I'll stay.
He signed the new contract, didn't he? He signed the new contract.
And Scales has signed a 4-year deal. Miovski, they want to listen to offers. They're quite willing to put him out on loan. So all of these decisions will be made. One story that came out that I think I'm really happy about is Stephen Naismith's had his contract extended to 2026 with his backroom team. And I think that's the reward for not only the last season, but I think they've started well. They look as if they're a right good outfit with their bench as well.
Yeah, they've got a strong squad, Peter. I think they're massive favourites again for 3rd place. I think Stephen totally deserves it. I think he's done a fantastic job there. A lot of supporters weren't sure of him when he first came in. I think I look back to the last game of that season when Hibs visited them under Lee Johnson. If Hibs won, they leapfrogged Hearts in that European place, and they get a 0-0 draw with 10 men, and that was a sliding doors moment for me, because I'm not so sure Stephen would have still been there. You know, if Hibs would have won that and finished above Hearts. So ever since then, last season, the whole season, he was excellent. Started the season well against Rangers. European football to look forward to. I think their squad depth, I think their recruitment's been excellent. I think you look at guys like Danda and Penrice and guys like that who have come in, Spittle. They've got a real kind of core of players who are used to the Scottish Premiership as well, Peter. So I think competition for places have kept Shankland. Hearts, for me, massive favourites again to finish 3rd and even try and push closer to Rangers. Yeah,
the other thing I was going to suggest to you, and please don't think I'm being really pro Hearts in this. Well, I'll open it up then and say to you, I cannot believe that Hearts and Hibs are not sniffing around Ryan Jack, who was in the stand watching the St Mirren game last night. He's a free agent, and unless somebody, and he has had offers from down south, as we know, because he told us exclusively on PLZ Soccer, where you get the best interviews. But quite simply, he's a player who's available, great experience, fit, free from injury.
I agree, Peter, but we don't know how much Ryan's looking for. I mean, it might be out with Hibs Hearts budget. You know, listen, I don't know how much he'd be on at Rangers, but certainly be miles more than Hibs and Hearts could pay. I think if he was prepared to drop down to that level in terms of wages, I think every club outside Celtic and Rangers would want him here. But whether he's prepared to do that, or whether he's thinking to himself, right, I'll try and get a good deal abroad and make myself a few quid and go and play in the sun somewhere, we don't know. But I think he's obviously a no-brainer for teams like that. But it's all about what he's looking for, Peter.
I think he'd be a great signing, Ruffy, and a real intent for a Hibs or a Hearts in the middle of the park to get someone of that calibre.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with Tam. It's the player himself who decides, you know, is it money or is it playing football? What does he want at this stage of his career? You would like to think that it's football, playing with a good club that play good football and winning things or trying to win things, because he's obviously been at Rangers, you know. So whoever gets him will have somebody who's came through, you know, a pedigree of playing with a top team. So that'll be a big asset for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, give us your thoughts on that. We're going to talk Scottish Premiership and the games over the weekend. Some crackers to look forward to as well. We'll also discuss players who could be on their way out at some of the Scottish Premiership clubs. And we'll look down south to the English Charity Shield and the fact that Lee Carsley has come in as interim England boss. What do you make of that as well? Give us your thoughts on Kilmarnock and St Mirren, because quite simply they are just at this moment hanging on the edge of a cliff. Can they make it through? We don't think so. Tam and myself think both of them could be out. Ruffy thinks Kilmarnock maybe. And even Stephen Robinson has mentioned in the press conference, if they are going to get through next week by knocking out SK Brann, they're going to have to perform better.
Well, I believe that our performance has to be a lot better to do that. You know, the resilience, the character, the storyline. Paisley's buzzing tonight. It's absolutely fantastic for everyone involved. But we know that there's probably 7 players there are much, much better than what we showed tonight on the ball. You know, we didn't have the ownership we wanted. We didn't buy the passes we wanted. And by the way, that's credit to Brann as well. The press was incredible at times. But I'd rather make mistakes on the ball than panic on it. You know, we've got absolutely nothing to lose. They should come. They should beat us. They should have beat us. But they didn't. So it tells you how far St Mirren have come.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of Stephen Robinson's comments? Can the Saints produce a little miracle over there? A little bit of magic? And of course, they'll be training. They'll have played a game over the weekend, and again that match fitness will maybe give them the opportunity to cause SK Brann some problems. Okay, Scottish Premiership this weekend. Let's have a look at the fixtures to see exactly what you can look forward to. Rangers against Motherwell, Ross County Dundee United, Dundee against Hearts, Hibs against Celtic, Aberdeen St Mirren, and Kilmarnock against St Johnstone. That's what's on offer. You can give us your prediction on it. We'll certainly be offering you our predictions shortly. But before we get into the meat and bones of Hampden and Rangers against Motherwell, here are the news headlines.
Welcome to your daily news update, brought to you by Arnold Clarke. I'm Patrick, and here's your top stories on the 9th of August. Bobby Wells snatched a last-minute equaliser for Kilmarnock last night in their UEFA Conference League qualifier, which kept the tie level heading into the second leg. Speaking after the game, Derek McInnes praised his side's mentality to push till the end.
I think we've been a bit harsh with that, but great spirit, great determination. You always remember how a game finishes. I think they think the game's won. It's no. We'll look forward to next Thursday.
St Mirren also left it late to secure a 1-1 draw against Norwegian side Brann. One player they will be without in the second leg is Tiosi Olasanya, and while Stephen Robertson, he wasn't best pleased.
And it looked like the goalkeeper ran into him. And we get a booking. I get booked for stepping outside my box, but listen, this is European football. They're clever with what they do.
And in some transfer news, Bojan Miovski looks set to seal his exit from Aberdeen, as reports suggest he has been in talks with La Liga side Girona. Could he be making the move over to Spain? That's all of your headlines, brought to you by Arnold Clarke.
Girona. What do you make of that, Ruffy? I love that, the way you pronounced it there.
Yeah, it was super.
They went from St Aloysius to All Saints and Barmulloch there within 5 seconds.
Mental. Absolutely brilliant the way you pronounced it. But it brings us nicely to the games. Rangers against Motherwell. Do you think they're going to like Hampden?
Yeah, I think they will. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with the saying it's 52,000. I think it holds Hampden. You know, and great surface, great environment. You know, I see they put the branding all outside, the Rangers branding outside Hampden, so the supporters will go along there. It's something new for them. You know, I don't think excited is the right word, but I think they'll go along there, and I think the playing surface will suit Rangers. You know, the size of the park will suit Rangers. Obviously, Motherwell are saying they've got a few injuries, so for me, it's just all about Rangers tomorrow.
Yeah, of course, it's early days. Home game's not exactly ideal for them in this ground, but it's a brilliant playing surface.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great novelty for a lot of Rangers supporters who have never been to Hampden as a home team with a full stadium. You know, usually it's semi-finals, finals with half the crowd. So I think it'll be great. I think the players will enjoy it. Listen, the proof will be in the pudding, Peter. You know, winning games. If they go there and win every game at Hampden, they'll think, brilliant, might want to stay here. If they struggle, then they'll be desperate to get back to Ibrox as soon as possible. But again, I had a look at their fixtures. They've got a few home games coming up that they should win, including this one tomorrow.
Okay, let's get the thoughts of Philippe Clement. Patrick Mullen was out there to see what was happening in the Rangers camp.
Rangers will move into their new temporary home tomorrow when they take on Motherwell at Hampden Park. The move comes while Ibrox is being renovated, but Philippe Clement explained this afternoon that for him, Hampden Park, well, it's the best case scenario given the circumstances.
Yeah, I've been involved in that, about choices to make, and it was for me the best scenario, and not only for the players, for sure also for the fans, because we need to think about that, and that was for me also a priority, that they could feel in a way at home, not traveling much more than it is now. It's not a big difference. It's a little bit different maybe for people, but not a big difference. It would have been different if it was at Murrayfield, or it would have been in like a big stadium in England, for example. Were also other possibilities, but so I'm really happy that the club could find a solution.
Rangers head into the Motherwell game in between that crucial Champions League qualifier against Dynamo Kiev. In the first leg, it was Václav Černý that impressed the majority of the fans. But speaking today, Philippe Clement said, well, the new winger isn't quite ready for his first Premiership start.
And Václav, like I said, I think he had 6 trainings now until now. So it was before 4 weeks in holiday. So for him, it's like pre-season now. So people cannot expect him to play 90 minutes for the moment, although he would love to do.
It's Rangers versus Motherwell at Hampden Stadium tomorrow. It kicks off at 3 p.m. and PLZ Soccer will be there live, keeping you up to date.
Yeah, so there you are. Patrick just giving us the inside track. And of course, Černy's just slowly but surely got to be eased into this team. But I'll tell you, looks good. I thought his ball in for Desser's equaliser against Dynamo Kiev was top drawer.
Yeah, you could see the wee bit of experience. The boy shut him down, but he was smart enough to get it on his left foot and put a quality ball in. So yeah, I think Rangers supporters will be looking at the players that are coming in, you know, and expecting them to be ready starters, you know, but we'll have to wait and see how long that takes.
Yeah, if you're going to predict a game at the weekend, this might be the easiest one to predict because Motherwell are missing 8 first-team players. Sam Nicholson, Callum Slattery, Harry Payton, Johnny Katrumbis, Philip Stuparevic, Shane Blaney and Ross Callaghan are all out. So he's got his problems. 0-0 last week, now Rangers at Hampden.
Yeah, I think even going and play Rangers with a full team's difficult enough, but with that amount of injuries early in the season, it's going to be really, really difficult for Motherwell. Listen, they went to Ibrox last season towards the end of the season and won. You know, so they're capable of beating Rangers, but I just think the players have got out, plus Theo Bell leaving leaves a big hole in their attack, and I think Rangers should win this game comfortably and build on a good performance during the week.
Yeah, it's a tall order for Motherwell. Sometimes you get fans who'll cut you some slack because they realise the pressures you're under, but the last thing Stuart Kettlewell wants again is, do you remember that run last season when they just couldn't buy a win, and then all of a sudden people are thinking he's next for the sack because that's the way we go about our business in these.
Yeah, well, Tam's already touched on it. They lost 3 of their best players at the end of the season. The Motherwell supporters will be waiting to see if they have been replaced and will throw their tuppence worth into the team. But the injuries that you're saying they've got there and then having to go to Hampden, I think Rangers will be firing in all cylinders, getting the draw in midweek. You know, they'll be buzzing. Every player that they're brought in will want to be playing, you know, particularly when you're winning games. Everybody wants to take part. So I think it's one-way traffic again tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going 4-0 Rangers, Ruffy.
I'm going to go 3.
3-0.
3-0 Rangers for me.
Okay, you two in it together.
Take it you're not expecting Stuart Kettlewell in at any point after going with that prediction.
Well, to be fair, by the way,
4-0's hammering.
4-0's a hammering, but it's
Has he got 8 players out injured, Peter Ruffy, or is it just 4,
Well,
you
you
think?
see managers, I don't mean him, but managers like to paint a desperate picture and then all of a sudden, oh, there's 4 of them playing.
Right.
Yeah.
You said 4-0, so Stuart Kettlewell, and you've said he's lying about injuries.
No, I never
I
said
think you're going to get him back in,
said
Peter.
managers.
I think we'll get him back in. We'll certainly get him back in before the Daily Record get him back in for you and Jacko on your new show. And don't forget, you can join the two of them together. It's called Sleepy Hollow. The two of them just nattering to each other, holding each other's hand. That's the joy, Ruffy, isn't it? Honestly, you can just leather each other now.
When's it on?
Eh?
When's it on?
I'll send you a link. I'll send you a
I'll
link.
send you a link. It's on. I think it's on 7 till 2 minutes past 7 every night with Tam and Jacko. So anyway, apart from listen, he can't moan. We've given him a right good punt at it. Let's move to Hibs against Celtic. Now this is interesting because obviously, I think if you have just joined us and you haven't heard the news, Callum McGregor has decided to retire from international football. Of course, you know, you'll have your own view on him. Certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, I think he's been the best midfielder in Scotland by an absolute country mile. Brendan Rodgers, as you would imagine and as you would expect, very complimentary about his captain. This was his comment today on Callum. From a Celtic perspective, it's really good news. I think you all know the number of games that he plays. He never has a day off, ever. Now all his focus can be on Celtic. And I think that's one of the other things that probably, you know, is... I think you touched on it, Tam, but Ruffy, here is a player who has relentlessly played over the last 3 or 4 years, you know, 60, 70 games, constantly every minute of the game. Slowly but surely, Brendan Rodgers started to, maybe even Ange Postecoglou would take him off the odd time if the game was done and dusted. But he was non-stop every week.
Oh, there's no damn in any Celtic supporter that as soon as they go in there and they look at the team lines, they expect him to be on it. It was very noticeable last year when he wasn't on it. You know, Celtic struggled a wee bit. Even one man coming out of that Celtic team, he just showed how much he means to the team. He pulls the strings, you know, and as you said there, 90 minutes every week, you know, and he just bleeds Celtic. You know, he's been there since he was a ball boy. He's come up all the way. He's another Scott Brown. You know, they just want to play as many games as they can for their team, and if meaning not playing for Scotland means he can get another maybe a year playing with Celtic, then that's what he'll be thinking about. Yeah.
Now the good thing is that it's another week. There's more players come in from your old team at Hibs, and boy does he need them. Nicky Cadden's come in, which is the twin of Chris Cadden, and also I think Junior Hoylett is another addition. Needs more. How many more do you think, Tam?
Possibly a centre midfield player. Maybe a wee bit of creativity and I'd say maybe a wee bit of cover at centre half. I think they're light, but listen, I think that's him now brought in 2 centre halves, a goalkeeper, you know, 2 wingers, 2 strikers. So they're starting to get players in, Peter, which were badly needed. I think the result at the weekend, I think the players who were sitting in the sidelines, like your Hoylets and your Caddens, must have been thinking, I'll maybe get that wee extra bit of money I was looking for, because Hibs might push the panic button after losing the first game 3-0. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And they got 3 or 4 in right away this week. So, listen, I think they've strengthened the squad. I think Nicky Cadden, always liked him and Junior Hoylett. Two decent wide players. I think Junior Hoylett will be a really good signing. I was impressed with him at Aberdeen last season and surprised that he didn't sign a new deal with them. So we just have to wait and see. Obviously, Kieran Bowie's come in as well, 4-year deal. Peter from Fulham, young Scottish player who went down from Fulham from Raith Rovers early on in his career. He's back up, good experience in League One in England. So I think the squad is there now, and it's up to David to get the best out of them.
Is it noticeable that we're not talking about Martin Boyle? I haven't mentioned Martin Boyle since the start of the season.
Yeah, I think.
Not funny this carry on with, you know, going back to Australia and all that's got any effect on him at all, because I mean, last year, the year before, star man, week in, week out. it's not been noticeable that he's playing that kind of, whether it's a new style of play that they're playing, they're not getting the ball to him wide enough. But certainly he's done nothing so far.
I think they're too reliable on him, Peter. I think that everything needs to go through Martin Boyle. I think teams just think to themselves, listen, if we stop Martin Boyle, Hibs have not got a lot else. So that's why they've brought in another two wide players and 2 strikers, because they want to see more in the forward areas.
I think Joe Newell is the one class act they've had in the midfield area. But as you say, it's just 1 or 2 players. The rest of the supporting cast, the back line was giving away goals non-stop. I mean, that's the area that I think needs the biggest surgery. Get that back line sorted out, stop losing goals. I mean, 3-0 against St Mirren, one of the goals was farcical.
Yeah, but they've brought in 2 centre-halves, Peter, with good experience, and they've brought in a goalkeeper as well, so that was the first couple of weeks of the window. I think David Gray's went in and said, definitely, first things first, we need to get 2 centre-halves and a goalkeeper in. They've done that, they've added the different pieces in the forward areas. Luke McCowan, they're still looking to try and sign him.
He would be great, wouldn't he?
He would be great, but speaking to Stuart Taylor last night, I think Hibs will need to pony up some more money if he's to go to Easter Road. Yeah. I think there's interest in him in England as well. I think Dundee, if they get the right offer, will probably sell him. So I think Hibs are obviously in for him, but they'll need to pay more money than they've offered so far.
I'd love him to stay in Scotland, that's for sure. David Gray, no surprise, wants a reaction after last week's defeat.
Regardless of who the next opponent is, I think we've seen that from the weekend. I think, and what I said was unacceptable was, especially on reflection, looking back, the second half performance. It's very hard to take any positives from the game because the result overshadows the performance straight away for obvious reasons. But we know we needed to be better, the second half especially, and that's been the full focus this week, to make sure we get a reaction. And there's no better way to do that than to come and test yourself on what should be a great day at Easter Road.
Yeah, and actually full marks to Hibs, because they unveiled yesterday the bust of 5, the famous 5. All 5 of them were commissioned by a sculpture, and it was just, they looked fantastic, all 5 of them. Can you name all 5?
Really?
Yep. Bobby
Ormond.
Johnson. Willie
Ormond.
Yeah.
The good-looking guy.
Turnbull Smith.
Turnbull Smith, aye.
Yeah, there you are. Gordon Smith.
I know the Hibs history. Ruffy obviously doesn't, even though he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Embarrassing for you not knowing that. Anyway.
Well, to be fair, you know, you don't get a chance to know all your Hall of Fame teammates if you're in there, do you?
No.
You're just kind of a milling around signing things all the time, aren't you? And
and then obviously when you've been to 3 World Cups, you get your own cup.
Yeah, absolutely as well. I was waiting there, and I don't know if you've noticed. Did somebody give you this, or did you get it?
Yes, somebody sent me. I'd like to thank them very much, whoever it was who makes them.
It's fantastic, by the way. Well, if you'd been Tam, you'd have known, and then you'd have mentioned the name on the programme, so you'd have got your cut. But
it's a random person that gave you that.
Yeah,
just came through the post. These things happen.
Still nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. It's great.
2 fantastic photographs of you, Ruffy, in the early days when you were
just weird. That's just weird. Somebody sending a random mug. That's a bit weird.
You get fans when you're in the Hall of Fame, Tam. People actually like you. But if you move around so many clubs, people just don't get a chance to get to know you.
Any Rochester Rhinos fans watching, I'll give you my address.
And on the back of that, a big hello to you truckers out there as well, because there's more chance of somebody from there sending us. Anyway, yeah, well done, Ruffy. Hibs Celtic?
Tam's going to tell us that Celtic struggle at Hibs now and again.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they'll struggle this time. I think the first half performance against St Mirren was reasonable, but the goals they lost were comical. Not in them all, but the first one, St Mirren one, was good.
Yeah.
Celtic had 82% possession last week. Honestly, when I was watching the game, at one stage of the game, Scales and Clarke Vickers were 30 yards for the opposition's box. That's how much they'd pressed in and come out. Just couldn't get out. They just couldn't get out at all. I think it'll be the same tomorrow. I think they'll have too much movement, too much pace. I think Hibs could be the end of 3-0.
3-0?
Yep.
Is that a comfortable 3-0 battering?
No, I think Hibs will put up a show at some stage of the game. But
clearly not.
Probably the first half, but the 3 goals will go in the second half.
I agree with you, Ruffy. I think the way Celtic have started the season, the pre-season's gone well. I think the manager's managed to get his message across to the squad that he has. I think they're playing really, really well, and everybody seems to be buying into the way he wants to play now. So I can see them defeating Hibs 3-0.
No, I disagree, Peter. I think that Hibs have ran Celtic very close at Easter Road in recent seasons. I think the addition of the 3 or 4 players they've brought in this week will give the whole squad a lift. And I still think Celtic will just have too much, but I think it'll be a close game. You know, all the games at Easter Road have been close recent times, so I'll go Celtic to nick it 2-1, but I think Hibs will put in a good performance.
Okay, we'll hold you to that. Dundee against Hearts. Hearts buoyant by the fact that Stephen Naismith's got that new deal, but of course also excited by the fact that you have new players in, players on the bench that can come on and make a difference. Held Rangers to a 0-0. So clearly, all things looking good. Now, I wouldn't rule out them. I mean, Tam thinks Lon Shanklin will stay. I wouldn't rule out them adding, maybe 1 or 2 others before the window closes.
Well, I think Hearts were comfortable last year, third in the league, breath of fresh air. Never got near the second place Rangers. I think this year the expectations will be to try and get a wee bit closer. But I think Dens Park, as they proved last year, is going to be a tough place to go to.
Yeah.
Anybody going there will have to play particularly well to get away with 3 points. And I think if Hearts are going to continue to be that dominant third team, they'll have to go to Dens and win.
Yeah.
And get 3 points.
Okay. Last week it was the Dundee derby. It was great to watch. Great excitement. Both sides having a go on the front foot. You know what was refreshing about it, Tam? Watching 2 teams, and the only thing in their mind was to play the ball forward. Pass the ball forward. The pitch was magnificent at Tannadice, and it was. I was sitting in the press box thinking, this is a joy. If only this could be what we're watching, week in, week out.
Yeah, I think it's always been a really good derby. Even going back to the times that I played, I think it was a 2 each and a 2-1, the 2 games I played. There's been lots of goals in this fixture, Peter. I think both teams went out to try and win the game. And if you've got 2 teams who believe that they can win the game and they're both going to attack each other, you get an open game. You don't get that if one team thinks, we need to sit in. So both teams need to take great credit for going for it. And 2 each was probably a fair result. So it's a totally different game now. The high and the atmosphere of that coming back at home to play a strong Hearts team. And I think there'll be goals in this as well. And I think Hearts might nick it 3-2 in a thriller.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I think Dundee have got goals in them, but I'm not convinced them at the back.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. Tony Docherty, just on reflection, as he prepares for the visit of Hearts, reckons that some of his players get caught up in the whole hype around that derby.
But the important bit from my point of view is to make sure that the players are laser focused in the game. They can't get caught up in any of the surroundings. I thought we suffered a little bit from that last week, so it's important that we just focus on the game. We've been working all week in a game plan, and we've identified in Hearts, they've got a lot of strengths, but they've also got weaknesses, so it's important that we try and negate the strengths and exploit the weaknesses, and if we do that and we carry out that game plan, we'll give ourselves every chance of taking points.
Interesting times. He's done his homework. Will it be enough? Give us your thoughts on it. Regarding Hearts, they're going to be holding talks with Cammy Devlin and Xander Clarke about extending their contracts. Keisuke Tagawa has left to join J-League side Kashima Antlers. Didn't quite set the heather on fire. 3 goals, 21 games. He's off. There could be a few more out the door. Thanks to so many.
How much did they get for him, for the boy Tagawa from the Kashima Antlers? Was he dear?
Was he dear? No. Let's move on. I knew it was coming. I could see it going, and I'm thinking, where is he going with this? How is he going to ram in this pun? But he's managed to do it. Anyway, and don't forget, you can hear more of those puns on his new show when he leaves us. So, by the way, a Hearts fan says Ryan Jack's not good enough for Hearts. Really? I think he's good enough for Hearts.
Delusions of grandeur at Hearts already.
Well, you look at the players that Hearts have got in there. They've got Danda in there, the wee boy Devlin. They're quite busy players. I don't know where he would fit into the way that they're trying to play.
I'm not saying they're after him. I'm just saying
I
just think he's available. And
I think he's good enough. It's just where you play him.
Yeah, well, listen, I think he's good enough, and I think he can make an impact. But listen, we'll wait and see. I think Hearts are going to win it 2-1.
3-2 for me. 3-2 Hearts.
2-1 Hearts.
Okay, Aberdeen against St Mirren. This could be interesting. Obviously, the Dons managed to defeat St Johnstone by 2-1, and I think there's. I'm not going to say this is, the change in Aberdeen, because we've seen, and I'm not saying false dawn of a new era, you name it. I'm just saying I just can't envisage that massive change.
It has to happen, Peter. I don't think the Aberdeen supporters will suffer another year. The manager's done well since they came in. They've got reasonable results. But I think he has to send the Aberdeen fans away with a big smile on their face tomorrow. I think he's got to set his stall out right away, and the fans have got to go away saying, well, we're going to be top 6 this year. And beating Aberdeen supporters will probably be looking for 3rd or 4th. But these are the games he's got to win.
Yeah, the other thing about it as well is they'll need to move quickly if Miovski heads out the door to try and get something that's going to excite the fans.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got players in the irons in the fire in terms of strikers to come in, Peter. I think they've always known that they were going to lose him at some point. I don't see him staying beyond this window. I think there's too many clubs in for him. There's so much interest. Aberdeen will just be trying to get a bidding war to get as big a fee as possible. It'll be a huge, huge miss for them. He scored 20 plus goals last season and they were dire. So if you put him in a good side, I think he scores a lot of goals. So I think that Aberdeen, on the evidence of the St Johnstone game on Monday night, Peter, looked a decent outfit. They've signed a lot of players and they're playing a high press and they're getting after teams. So I would expect him to beat a St Mirren team who could possibly be tired after doing a lot of running last night in that game against Bergen. They had to cover a lot of ground, and I think they'll take advantage of that and win that comfortably 2-0.
Yeah, Michael Taylor says 2-0 to the Dons. McGrath, the first goal scorer. Who knows? Couldn't rule it out. I'm going to go 1-1, Ruffy, because I think St Mirren, off the back of that result, they just look like a well-oiled outfit who completely understand the manager's instructions. But I think the 5 or 6 players that he was talking about that couldn't quite lay a glove on Brann will need to turn up.
Yeah, I think that obviously St Mirren will make a go of it, but I think the whole buzz about Aberdeen, being up there, the supporters, I think it would need enough a full stadium, and that's one of the reasons why I think they have to win. And I think they've got players that have shown to the start of the season they will win, and I'm going to go Aberdeen 2-0.
Yeah, okay. Killie against St Johnstone. Kilmarnock will have to produce something, I hope, in Europe next week. But they're up against the St Johnstone side that I think are going to be relegated. There you are, I've said it.
I think they'll be stuffy. I think St Johnstone will try and sit in and try and take anything they can away from home. At home, the problem, as we all know, is strikers scoring goals. It hasn't happened. I just think Kilmarnock have got more goal power in their team, and if the wee boy Armstrong's fit, he'll cause a few damage. So there's only one winner for me, and that's Kilmarnock.
Yeah, I'm going to go Kilmarnock as well.
Yeah, narrow win, Peter, 1-0.
What do you make of new St Johnstone owner Adam Webb, who says the booze ban in Scottish football is irrational and clubs are being handcuffed by the law? I mean, you can drink at matches. The hospitality allows quite a number of fans to have a drink. You just can't get it on
the kiosks.
The kiosks. The way we were able to in English football when we were watching a few games, you took full advantage of it. You were absolutely plastered. But I think that's something that I think is a good point. He said they're handcuffed by the law. It's one law for one set of fans and another law for others.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that there's an American owner coming over. I think you've heard that from every American owner that's come over here. I think Ron Gordon was the same at Hibs. It's so regular over in American soccer. Ruffy will tell you, when I was playing over there, people sit at the game and have a beer. You go up and you buy a hot dog, you buy a beer. Yeah. And that's all sports, that's not just football, that's baseball, American, everything. So I'm not surprised he's come over and went, you can't get a drink at the games, why? So obviously he's not seen running pitch battles in, was it 1981 with Celtic Rangers, which obviously the booze ban came into effect after that.
It is 44 years ago.
It is, and
Come on.
people should be trusted to have a beer, but unfortunately we live in a country where we just can't really trust people to do it.
I think it must be, we must be near a trial period.
No, we must be near challenging it. You've got to challenge
Well,
it.
that's what I'm saying, we must begin have a trial. Let's have a season to see how it goes and see if people can behave themselves. But the stumbling blocks, the police.
Yeah.
The police will not handle any trouble at all. Any trouble that any of the games is drink.
But with all due respect, Ruffy, they should challenge it and say you cannot have a situation where everybody can go to Murrayfield and have a right good bevy, but you can't go to a match and have a pint. If you break the law, you break the law. You're arrested. You suffer the consequences. You know,
I agree, Peter. It should be. I mean, people should be trusted, but it'll just be a small element that maybe lets it down. But
arrest them.
I'm sure we should agree with Ruffy. Let's try it out and see, because it'll bring more revenue into Scottish football.
Absolutely. Ross County, Dundee United to finish, guys. Ross County, it was 0-0. It was a terrible game. I watched that match as well. Not great. Not too excited by what Ross County have to offer at the moment. Dundee United surprised me, Ruffy, because of all the mumping and moaning about Jim Goodwin. I was going up there thinking they were going to be terrible to watch, but they were really good.
No, and I think Ross County are always difficult up there at home, in particular. It's the beginning of the season. They've already got a point under the belt, so I think they'll put up a good show. I don't think they'll beat Dundee United, but I think they'll be good enough to get another point.
Yeah, I think United will win at 1-0.
I think the goals in this, Peter, I was impressed with Dundee United in the derby. I thought in the forward areas, particularly Trapanovsky, looked different class, and I think they'll go up there and win that 3-1.
Yeah, Miller Thompson looked good as well.
Miller Thompson, yep. They've certainly got a lot more pace and power. I mean, it was a totally transformed team from the Championship team, Peter. Bar the back three, and, you know, the midfield and the forward line was drastically changed from that Championship team, and I think they look better.
Yeah, on our feed, James says Dundee United 2-0. One of our other viewers has mentioned exactly, Peter, you commit a crime somewhere, you should get lifted. You shouldn't punish fans because of the sport they choose to watch. You can obviously have booze here in Holland as well. Yeah, listen, you can have it all over the place. It's just this country. We need to take a more responsible outlook on it and give the football fans the chance to have a drink. Everything in moderation, Tam, to be honest with you, which was what I was appealing to him that night at Anfield. I said, look, Tam, this is your sixth red wine. I mean, you
did get hospitality, Peter, which was free drinks. So, I mean, I've got to take advantage of it. And
absolutely.
My interview after the game will live long in the memory, where you asked me about the game and I didn't even know who was playing, to be honest, where I was.
It was a good night out, wasn't it? Anyway, just quickly before we go, down south, Charity Shield, Man City, Man United. Are United better this season? After that vote of confidence for Ten Hag?
I think they have to be better. You know, will they be better enough to take Man City? You know, that they've still got their quality players. That was amazing amount of money they got for, I'm going to try and pronounce his name,
Alvarez.
82 million.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
one of these big clubs throw at each other.
Yeah, incredible. I think he wanted a new challenge apparently, and of course it helps City when they have to duck and dive on the financial fair play. Okay, Charity Shield, you know, give us a scoreline.
Man City 2-0.
Yep.
I'm going to go 2-1 to Man United. Simply because you've seen the FA Cup final. I think Ten Hag knows how to play them, and they've got pace on the counter attack to get in behind that.
City backline.
Press, aye.
Okay, I'll go with City to win 2-1. Just a footnote, Lee Carsley, interim England manager. He was appointed by Republic of Ireland. He's been with the under-21s at England. You know, he's got a little run of games that he'll be in charge until they decide who's getting it full-time.
Yeah, I think this was always in the cards, Peter. I think that it was heavily linked to Ireland, and I think he knocked that Ireland job back because we obviously had a vested interest in that Ireland job with Neil. And we were looking to see the runners and riders because we'd put a lot of money on Neil to get that job, which unfortunately didn't. I think Lee was always thinking to himself, if Gareth Southgate leaves, you know, I could be in it. He'd done a fantastic job with the 21s. I think they won either the Euros or the Under-21 World Cup. I think it was the Euros. And he's very highly rated with English FA, so I'm not surprised that he's in there. That's a job that he's been waiting for.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, thank you to so many of you for your comments, some of them positive, some of them negative. We like to take everything on the chin. And of course, one comment says, you know, Tam, you're right, as a Scotsman, if there's free drink, it's an obligation to go there and have a right good night out. And you didn't cause any trouble, to be fair to you.
I didn't, no. I'm a happy drunk.
Yeah, absolutely. As he swayed down the Anfield Road, just bumping into cars, Ruffy. He seemed happy enough, so I just let him go. Still doesn't beat you and Maggie in a night out, Ruffy.
No.
You two, when you go for it in a night out, you know.
It's quite early, about 5 or 6 would be early enough to open the cocktail bar.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you two get the champers. Listen, have a great weekend. Go out and support Scottish football. The great thing about it is we are fanatical about our beautiful game, so why not get out there? And if you want to keep up to date, don't forget, if you download the app, you can watch live our reports, our reaction from managers and players, and over and above that, we will have stories up on the website for you, unique video content. Tomorrow morning, Ruffy and Tam go head-to-head in the quiz and the preview in depth with Kerry Pollock. That drops out on YouTube at 9 o'clock in the morning. Hopefully you will enjoy that as well. There's so much coming up on PLZ Soccer. They won't be able to copy all of what we're doing, so we'll try and bring you as much unique video content as possible and hopefully entertain you, have a few laughs. Hit the subscribe button, share the programme with your mates and tell them to come and join the party with us. Thanks to Ruffy, to Tam, and from myself, Peter Martin. Have a great weekend. Thank you for listening and watching.